Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Woody Allen? Stop
You know what? You are sick.
Yeah.
Well, you're known for saying outrageous things, Mr. Trump.
In this video, you'll hear the exact Howard Stern exchanges where Trump spoke about Ivanka's looks like he was listing product features. Then we'll play Ivanka's public response years later and compare it to what's on tape. We'll connect these moments to a bigger question. When public image clashes with recorded reality, who do you believe? If you thought this was just celebrity gossip, you're about to see how it ties directly to trust, credibility, and political branding. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Imagine turning on the radio expecting Howard Stern to be talking about celebrities.
Donald, do you ever discuss sex with your daughter?
No.
You do not?
No.
You've never sat her
And I
down?
have a feeling we're not going to hear.
Yeah, no. You know about sexual predators and things like that. I mean,
You are one.
All right, I was going to say that, but it's true.
Another embarrassing video from a 2006 Howard Stern show has surfaced. It shows Trump alongside daughter Ivanka and son Don Jr. joking about being a sexual predator.
Scandals, maybe the usual crude jokes, and instead hearing Donald Trump introduce his own daughter like he's selling a diamond necklace on the Home Shopping Network. Only instead of saying flawless cut or sparkling stone, he's talking about her body. That's the bizarre scene that played out in the mid-2000s in front of a national audience of millions, with no one in the room blinking an eye like any of it was strange. Back in 2004 and again in 2006, Trump was a regular on Stern's show. Howard would bait guests into pushing boundaries, and plenty of people played along. But Trump wasn't just a celebrity plugging The Apprentice. He was giving listeners this weird cross between fatherly brag and something no father should ever say.
Most beautiful girl in the world, you know, I would marry her. These types of things, most people, certainly politicians, don't say. Ivanka Trump.
You know who's one of the great beauties of the world, according to everybody, and I helped create her? Who? Ivanka.
During the campaign and even now, people quote these interviews that I did with him. Big time. I was quite surprised when they dragged out every single Donald Trump interview I had done. And in some ways, I felt it was unfair to Trump. But really, it was in a very joking scenario. He was not comparing his life to a Vietnam vet. It was ha 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 and this and that. But
the segment had the usual unfiltered chaos the show was known for, but when the conversation turned to Ivanka, Trump slipped into this strange salesman mode, as if he expected America to nod along approvingly. Then came lines that made even Stern's staff shuffle in their chairs. Without even pausing, Trump tossed out how Ivanka had the best body and called her a great beauty. And this wasn't just a passing compliment, he lingered on it. For a split second, you could almost hear listeners at home doing that nervous laugh people do when they're not sure if something's a joke or a confession. Howard, being Howard, decided to push the envelope even further. He straight up offered, on air, to marry Ivanka. The kind of wild, obviously provocative thing Stern said to get reactions. And instead of recoiling or even laughing it off, Trump took it in stride, like Stern had just complimented his golf course. No hesitation. The lack of discomfort was its own statement. The shift was fast. One moment sounded like standard dad pride. The next felt like Trump was running an Olympic judging panel for bikini contests. There was this matter-of-fact tone when he talked about her appearance, like he was stating the square footage of a penthouse. You half expected him to start throwing in closing costs.
Do you feel that in some way you helped make him president?
absolutely. Because Donald would come on my show. I mean, look.
Does it make you feel bad or good?
What is it about public service? What is it that drives her? What was it like when she saw her when her husband becomes president? Like in Moby Dick, I was chasing her. She was my obsession. I wanted to see Hillary Clinton win. And I thought if she had come on the show, the way I helped Donald was I let him come on and be a personality.
And sure, Stern's whole shtick thrived on shock value. His listeners tuned in for outrageous, inappropriate back and forth. But what made this particular exchange stand out was that the subject wasn't a model, a pop star, or even an enemy. It was his own daughter. That's a wrinkle most guests don't bring to the table. If your average dad even hinted at this kind of language at a family barbecue, that's the moment grandma decides she's done with him forever. Cousins would stop visiting. There'd be an unspoken unspoken agreement that he now sits alone at the holidays. Somehow, Trump was saying it on one of the biggest radio shows in the country, and he just kept getting invited back. Looking at the bigger picture, this clip wasn't a one-off badly landed joke. The way he spoke about Ivanka was actually part of a track record. It was almost like a recurring bit, except the punchline was always the same. Her body, her looks, how other men supposedly viewed her. It kept showing up across different interviews and appearances, like a greatest hits album that no one asked for. And here's the kicker, years later, Ivanka would end up in the uncomfortable position of managing the fallout, smoothing over these warped moments without making it look like she was even trying. Not a broom in sight, yet somehow she was the one cleaning up the mess, while the source of it all carried on as if nothing odd had ever been said.
And my relationship with Donald was, he did ask me to speak at the convention, and I had to say no. And
Were you tempted at all?
well, since I was a Hillary supporter, for a minute I thought, well, I'll go up and endorse Hillary. I've had dinner at Mar-a-Lago many times. And that's why I couldn't even believe that Donald really even wanted this all to work out for him. Because if you go to Mar-a-Lago, it's like a piece of heaven. It's a beautiful place. I have a real problem, as you can tell. If I was a Hillary Clinton supporter, you can tell I have a real problem with what's going on. So I'm very conflicted now. You know, the guy I knew I didn't know this was him. And like Donald, she could have been seen in a different light.
And you believe if she had done that, she'd be president?
That's an arrogant statement.
Who do you trust more? Ivanka sitting in a glossy studio with perfect lighting, saying her dad was embarrassed by what he said, or the uncut radio tapes where he's talking about her body like he's reading off swimsuit competition scores? That's the real test here. On one side, you've got the polished PR-approved version. On the other, you've got audio you can't unhear from a guy who has never been shy about running his mouth. Years later, Ivanka sat down for interviews and brushed it all off with a smile. She said it was out of character, that he didn't speak like that at home, and that people were overreacting. It was a neat, clean explanation designed to make the whole thing sound like a one-time fumble from an otherwise respectful dad. But hearing Trump on Stern, there's no mistaking the tone. It's confident, casual, and completely unbothered. The sharp difference between her "he was embarrassed" and his actual delivery is the kind of gap you can't just bridge with good lighting and media training. Now play those sound bites back to back, and the problem gets louder. The tape has Trump describing her as having the best body. His voice is steady, almost proud. Then slip in Ivanka years later, saying he doesn't speak that way in private, and the contradiction smacks you in the face. Either he had some strange radio personality alter ego, or someone's trying to rewrite history mid-broadcast. And it's not like this was the only moment where the campaign had to get creative with explanations. There were those Twitter likes on pretty questionable photos that the team blamed on rogue staff members. There were headlines written off as misunderstandings. It was narrative damage control 101. Find a harmless explanation, feed it to friendly outlets, and hope it sticks. But then you remember the Miss Universe anecdote where Trump bragged about walking through dressing rooms while contestants were half dressed. That wasn't behind closed doors. That was bragged about, with zero sign of embarrassment. The more these moments pile up, the harder it is to keep treating them as accidental slip-ups. They start looking like the brand. And then there's that Stern moment you can't script, Howard firing off, "I'll marry her," right to Trump's face. Instead of stepping in with even a bland "that's my daughter" line, Trump played along like the two of them were discussing a business deal. Years later, Ivanka never addressed that specific part. She sidestepped it completely, which makes you imagine some poor PR handler internally screaming, "Please, not that clip again," every time Stern's archives trended online.
I thought that perhaps if she came on my show, we could have stripped away some of the pomp and circumstance or the tightness that comes with running for president. You know, to sit here and cavalierly say, yes, she would have been president. No, but look at the Electoral College and look at that. It came down to a couple of states, and it was
70,000 votes.
70,000 votes. Out of that audience, if Hillary had come on, in the same way that Lady Gaga came on, or Gwyneth Paltrow, or Rosie O'Donnell, and guys call me afterwards, "Man, I never liked Lady Gaga."
You can picture the PR war room, giant whiteboards covered in possible answers for every awkward Trump quote, a team living off coffee and antacids, and a group sigh of despair the moment someone says, "Howard Stern just reposted 2006. If political campaigns were measured in staffers' gray hairs, hers probably aged a decade in one election cycle. And that's the thing, when you line up not sexist, respectful man statements with years of real footage and audio saying otherwise, It's no longer about whether one specific sentence was meant as a joke. The evidence is public, it's undeniable, and it's his own words. This isn't just some tabloid spat between a talk show host and a former reality star turned politician. It's a case study in what happens when public image is treated like a stage performance. And the receipts, those old unedited tapes, get in the way of the script politicians want you to believe. Old tapes don't just sit in dusty archives. They pop back up, crystal clear, every time someone tries to pretend they never happened. And when the audio is this unfiltered, no amount of careful PR spin can drown it out. So if voters are basically the audience, does that make them the punchline when the act doesn't match reality? Politicians love selling a brand, but proof lives in the record. Persona is easy to rehearse. Receipts don't rehearse. Before swallowing any polished political defense, maybe ask yourself, are you buying the show or listening to the evidence playing in plain sight?